Hello, this is Bill Aiton with SSI Consulting. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I've also got Kate Ogden from Uninet, and we're going to be your two presenters.
Good morning, everyone.
Yep. So we're going to go ahead and get started, and we expect to end up about 15 minutes after the hour, and we'll have some questions at the end that you can actually ask questions. Everybody's going to be on mute during the presentation. You should have a question box in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. You can type a question there, and Kate and I will try to respond to those questions either as we go or at the end of the webinar. So we'll go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is 5 Keys of Evaluating DCAA Compliant Accounting Software. And we're going to be showing you two systems. One is Microsoft Dynamics SL for accounting software, and the other is Uninet, which is focused on time and expense and project execution. So our agenda today is to go over those two products, discuss DCAA accounting and project management software, then wrap up and questions at the end. So, Kate, do you want to talk a little bit about this slide?
Sure. So when you start to learn a little bit about DCAA requirements, you do learn that some of these things are absolute requirements for compliance with your accounting and timekeeping and expense tracking systems. So some of them are pretty obvious. You have to have an accounting system that's in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles. But at a more technical level, there's a lot around your costs, segregating direct and indirect costs, accumulating costs by contract, determining indirect rates, and then for timekeeping, the adequate timekeeping system, we'll talk a little bit more about that, things like charging time to the correct projects, not being able to charge time in advance. And in addition, on expense reporting, you want to be able to exclude unallowable costs. So we're going to hit all of these points as we go through the presentation. Bill?
Yep. So the five keys that we're going to talk about. Hang on a second. One extra slide. The 5 keys we're going to talk about today are time entry per DCAA requirements, as well as expense entry. We're going to talk about segregating direct from indirect costs. We're going to talk about provisional rates versus actual rates and cost pools for determining those. And then we're also going to talk about billing formats that support the different contract types.
So part of the solution is the Uninet project and resource management software. We are the leading professional services automation software for government contractors. Our product is called Project Portfolio. We have been in business actually since 1988 and became a software product company in 1998. Our software has been in production for 14 years. It is stable. We're coming out with version 9.6 in October. We are headquartered in Dulles, Virginia. All of our technical support and development is done in Dulles. None of it is offshored. Of our 900-plus customers, more than 60% are government contractors, so we really know this marketplace. We take a lot of suggestions from our customers into account when we're doing our product roadmaps, so as a consequence, our software really meets the needs of government contractors. You can license Uninet either on demand, in the cloud, we'll host it for you, or you can buy the software and host it yourself, which we call on-premise. For all of our customers, we have really a crack implementation and training team that's professional consultants. They know the business. Many of them have been accountants in the past, or project managers, so they know how to get this stuff up and running quickly. For smaller organizations, we do have a small business program that we call Quick Start, which is a relatively low-cost way to get into Uninet with a very quick implementation. And for that, you have to have less than 50 resources. Bill?
Okay. And on the SSI Consulting side, we've been in business since 1983. Next year, we'll celebrate our 30th year in business. We're a gold Microsoft partner with an ERP competency, Enterprise Resource Planning. It's basically the accounting solutions offered by Microsoft. We support and implement both Microsoft Dynamics SL, which used to be known as Solomon, and Microsoft Dynamics GP, which used to be known as Great Plains. We've got offices in McLean and Virginia and Columbia, Maryland. Like Uninet, we offer the product both in a cloud version and an on-premise version. Lately, about half of our customers are selecting to be in the cloud. 3 years ago, that was almost no one was in the cloud. We've been selected as the Microsoft Partner of the Year for the Mid-Atlantic. So of the many hundreds of Microsoft partners in Pennsylvania, Maryland, DC, Virginia, Delaware, West Virginia, our firm was selected as the top partner. And then we win awards regularly in our industry, 2 of which are the VAR 100s awards and then the Technology Pacesetter Award. So lots of experience, about 25 people and hundreds of customers that we've implemented accounting solutions for.
So when you look at the 2 softwares together, we have 2 different approaches, but we're all going for one goal. So one approach is that of the project managers. And if you're a project manager, you want real-time status on your projects. You don't want to have to wait 2 weeks to find out how your project's doing against budget, who's billing what to your project. You want to be able to budget and forecast future projects. You know, something's coming in-house. You want to do some analysis. You want to find out if I put Bob on this project versus Tom, what's it going to look like. You want to know when will resources with certain skills become available. You'd want to know how profitable your project is, and you might need to run an earned value report on it or at least understand your project burn rate. So you need all of this information at your fingertips in real time to be effective in managing your projects.
And then on the accounting side, your accountants are concerned about compliance. They're concerned about revenue and billing. They're concerned about pricing. They're also concerned about measuring the overall corporate profitability and tracking indirect costs. And the reason we're showing you this is because in order to have true DCAA compliance, you need to have systems that will support both sides of this equation.
So again, in Uninet, the project managers would be doing project budgeting and forecasting. They would be managing the resources, you know, assigning them to projects or requesting that they be assigned. They would be tracking time and expense, and they'd be doing project reporting and management. And the data on those projects would be going back to the accounting system.
And then on the accounting side, you would be the Dynamics SL would form your accounting backbone. It would be where you would accumulate your pools of expenses and costs and where you do your allocations to projects. It's where you set up contracts and track your billing and accounts receivable, and then also produce financial reports. And these 2 systems share an integration where they share data back and forth on a real-time basis.
So I'm going to take a few minutes and talk to you about Uninet and then show you one way you can manage DCAA compliance using Uninet. Uninet can manage the entire life cycle of project portfolio management, and it starts over here in the yellow where you're planning for projects and you're asking questions like, when will resources with certain skills become available? What are my revenue cost and forecast cost based on certain scenarios? As I said before, if I put Bob on here versus Tom, how much is it going to cost me and what can my profitability be? So you can do what-if analysis. Once you have the project in-house, you would use Uninet to track time and expense against the project, as well as doing approvals, and then there's a collaboration tool that allows project personnel to share information with each other. Having that actual data in Uninet allows you to run real-time reports on the status of your project. You can also do earned value reporting, burn rate reporting, and understand your project revenue. You can optimize your projects by looking at utilization, you know, who's billing, who's using billable hours, who's not, who's charging what to what projects, what's my capacity, how are my projects doing, what's my forecast for the revenue on this project, what's my profitability, and it allows you to track metrics against your project as well. So I'm going to jump into Uninet and show you a demonstration, a very brief demonstration of how Uninet works. This is the Uninet login screen. As you see, it can be customized for your company. I'm going to put in my credentials as an end user. And when I do this, Uninet is going to dynamically generate this dashboard that shows me the data I'm allowed to see. Uninet is a roles-based system, so people see only the data they're allowed to see. And then within that, they show what they want to see on their dashboard. This is a Uninet timesheet. This happens to be weekly for demonstration purposes. It can be biweekly, semi-monthly, monthly. It can start any day of the week. So starting over here on the left, one of the first things that DCAA requires is that people only charge time to the projects to which they're assigned. And Uninet addresses that by only allowing people to see the projects to which they're assigned. So this list is only the things that this end user is allowed to charge time to. The same is true on the task level if you manage your projects that way. So when a user puts in time, they can put it in any increment up to 1/100th of an hour based on your business rules. And Uninet will do the rounding for you. Some of the DCAA requirements are, one would be to not be able to charge time in advance. So for this project, you cannot charge time in advance, but you can for, let's say, an admin project, because maybe for vacation, people would want to charge before they leave town. Another requirement for DCAA is to substantiate your work. And inside of Uninet, you can require people to put comments in. And in this case, this person has to put a comment in before they can submit their timesheet. Another thing that, I didn't get that in the right place. My apologies. Another thing that DCAA requires is an audit trail if things get changed. So if you change time in the past, I save that time. It's now available for real-time reporting, but if I'm going to change it, then Uninet will help you create an audit trail. The end user has to choose either from a drop-down menu or they do free-form data entry. That information, as well as the comments, will stay with the timesheet as long as you get the timesheet. You can also restrict people from charging time outside of a certain date range. So you can say you can only charge time from September 1st to September 15th. And you can restrict them from charging more than a certain number of hours. One of the big challenges that most organizations have is daily time entry. It's a requirement of DCAA, and the question is, how do we make that happen? Well, one of the things Uninet will do to help you make that happen is send out a reminder email to the people who have not put in their minimum number of hours. So you can send that out at 5 o'clock that day, 9 o'clock the next morning, whenever your business rules are to do that. And that email will contain a hyperlink that will bring the end user directly to the timesheet for putting in their time. And it's a pretty effective tool. So that's very quickly what our timesheet looks like. I'm also going to show you the expense report, and then I'm going to log in as a manager. So here's what a Uninet expense report looks like. This report is billing to 3 different projects. You can do that if you want, or you can have it billed just to one project. Because it's billing to 3 projects, I can choose to either allocate it per the 50-50 split up there, or I can charge it to just one project. So you make sure the right costs go to the right project. We do have the federal CONUS and OCONUS per diems loaded into Uninet. In this case, for Denver, Colorado, the meals and incidentals per diem is $66, but the customer provided breakfast and lunch. So Uninet has calculated the amount that you can bill the customer and the amount that should be reimbursed to the employee. We also have the concept of overage. So in this example, for Denver, Colorado, my per diem for lodging is $141. The daily rate that I was able to get was $150. So Uninet will calculate, based on the per diem, how much can actually be billed to the customer, in this case $329. We'll put the remaining amount on an unallowable line so the employee will be reimbursed, but you won't bill the customer. These red flags indicate an out-of-policy condition. So here we know what that is. They had overage on the overage on the lodging. Here we don't have a wizard to tell us what the policy is here. We do have a threshold chart that tells us lunch should have been $25. So there's a comment here to explain that. UniNet allows you to attach receipts. So you have that that'll go with your expense report, as long as you keep the expense report, as well as bring in credit card charges. So just a nice to have for an expense report. Okay. So that's the timesheet and the expense report from an end user standpoint that helps you reinforce those DCAA rules around timekeeping and expense management. I'm going to log in now as a manager and show you a couple of things that the manager does that help comply with DCAA regulations, starting with the approvals. So from this screen, you have to click on an expense report to see the expenses to do the approvals, and DCAA wants that. They want the managers who know the business to approve the time charges and expense charges. Here's Matt's timesheet from a couple weeks ago. It's showing the time that he's charged and the projects to which he's charged it. It also shows his comments, so that'll be found here, comments substantiating the work he does. His audit trail can be viewed. It shows what he did, when he did it, and why he did it. And his approval history is here. So the timesheet and the expense report are time-stamped as you use it. It shows when the timesheet was opened, when it was submitted. Once it's approved, there'll be a timestamp. If the timesheet is disapproved, you have to put a comment in, and that comment goes in an email back to the employee with a hyperlink so they can fix the timesheet or expense report. But that comment will also be kept here in the audit trail. The same is true of the expense report. It shows the expenses. You can, if you disapprove it, you have to include a comment to go back there. We do have a leave request process in UniNet as well as an expense request process if that is of interest to you. Now, one of the things I get asked about a lot are floor checks. How can I just do a quick check to make sure people are doing their timesheets? And we have two tools for that in UniNet. The first is this chart, which shows you the status of all the timesheets you have responsibility for. You can drill into each piece of the pie. So this shows us the 6 people who have not yet started timesheets. They've been getting these email reminders. They've not started their timesheets, so you can send them another email from here. It shows you who started timesheets, what's been submitted, what's been disapproved. We also have the concept of approving as well as completed. So you can have multiple approvals for a timesheet or an expense report. Completed means it's done, it's gone through the approval process, but has not yet been sent to SL for accounting purposes. Up through completed, timesheets can be changed, but they have to go back through the approval process, and there's a timestamp audit trail that goes with every single step of the way. Another way to do a floor check is this tabular report that shows you each person and the status of their timesheets. It also shows you how many hours they've charged. So while Donna has started the timesheet, she's only charged 16 hours, and she should have done at least 24 through the end of the day today. So you can shoot her a note asking her what's going on. As you can see, we do have multiple layers of approval, as I mentioned. You can have as many managers as you want. You can have project approvers. So you can set it up so that the project manager approves those portions of the timesheet and expense report that they have responsibility for. So they'll only see the things that pertain to them, and they can approve them. Of course, there are pluses and minuses, right? You have more control over the timesheets and expense reports, but it also may delay getting those things approved for payment purposes. We also have a customer role in UniNet, so you can have your customer come in and approve timesheets and expense reports if you want them to. I mentioned earlier that UniNet is a roles-based system. This particular manager has access to a whole lot more information, and these are the things he's chosen to show on his dashboard, putting approvals at the top because that's his most important thing here. So that is a very brief overview of Uninet time and expense, and you've seen how Uninet can help with DCAA requirements like not charging time in advance, keeping an audit trail of all the changes, substantiating the work, daily time entry, a floor check, as well as reporting direct expenses, keeping track of what's allowable, what's not allowable, and charging per the federal CONUS and OCONUS per diem schedules. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill to talk a little bit about SL.
Great, thanks, Kate. So Microsoft Dynamics SL has been around since the early 80s. It was purchased by Microsoft back in 2000, and then it's spent the last more than a decade being substantially enhanced by Microsoft. It's targeted for professional services organizations. It also has field service as well as distribution, and it's a very good fit for government contractors. So it's used by a number of government contractors, especially in this area. It basically is a system that allows you to do accounting in two ways. One is traditional financial accounting, and the other is project accounting, and both those systems are totally integrated. So this first screenshot is a picture of the main login screen, and you'll notice that this has a little bit of a look and feel similar to Outlook. So if many people use Exchange and Outlook as their email systems. And on the left-hand side, you've got system trays. In the middle, you've got your work area, including dashboards and graphics to tell you what's happening in the system. And then on the right-hand side are some quick lists. These would be lists of invoices that are perhaps due or projects that got opened, whatever you're highlighting at the current time. The next screen I brought up a screen that shows a typical chart of accounts, or at least the part of a chart of accounts. But the point here is that if you set up the chart of accounts correctly, or if you set it up to support your DCAA reporting requirements, you'll be able to segregate costs. So you can see here's an example of direct costs all being focused on account numbers that start with 5s. Fringes start with 6, overhead starts with 7, G&A starts with 8. This allows your financial system to pull out information by a particular broad category, as well as getting very detailed about specific areas of, for instance, travel, for airfare, lodging, ground transportation, etc. But one of the things that we help our government contractor customers do is to come up with a chart of account structure that supports being able to pull the data out in the way that you need it. The SL system also includes the typical government contractor reports as part of the out-of-the-box system. Everyone's used to job summary reports and labor hour details, revenue detail, cost summary, etc. Some of these reports are similar to reports that can be run out of Uninet. So the particular reports in this case would be run by the accounting team, but the project managers may spend most of their time living in the Uninet system, and they would run a similar report from that location. One of the things that government contractors are very concerned with is they're setting overhead rates and indirect rates, and then determining how accurate were they. So at the beginning of the year, you set target rates, and then reality happens to you. And at the end of some period of time, maybe the first quarter or half the year or the whole year, you want to go back and see what were our actual indirects, G&A, etc. This particular report in the lower right-hand corner, it's a little bit hard to read, but the first column is the type of overhead, whether it's fringe benefits, overhead, G&A, and then the second column in that lower right-hand corner is the target, that you might have set up at the beginning of the year, and then the final column is the actual. And this is based on the individual projects that are listed above. So this report can be run for a particular month, for a quarter, for whatever period of time you'd like to analyze. But obviously it's very important to know how accurate were we, and to be able to go back to the agency that gave us the contract and see if we can get an adjustment in our fees based on what actually occurred in our organization. And ideally we want to be pretty close to where we were before. The fifth item for evaluating DCAA compliant software is being able to get paid, is being able to invoice your contracts so that you are reimbursed by the agency. And in the government contracting world, the contract actually tells you how you must create the invoice. In the commercial world, commercial businesses just create an invoice and send it. But in the government contracting world, you've got different invoice formats based on the contract type. So a cost plus fixed fee invoice could look different from a firm fixed price invoice, and that would be different from a time and materials invoice. So the accounting system, the SL system, allows you to actually design the invoice, and you can think of all the boxes and sections on this screen that show an invoice. You can think of each of those as custom definable. So you can actually go in and say, I want my logo to appear in this particular location. I want the detail to appear in these locations, and I would like certain columns to appear, etc. So you can actually get the invoice the exact way you want it to. And then invoice types are attached to contracts. So if I print 5 invoices for 5 different contracts, all 5 may look totally different just because each one is using a different format for the invoicing. And of course, that's something that we want to have when we're able when we're setting up contracts. Now, this isn't particularly related to DCAA, but what we do find that there are more government contractors who are delivering both professional services and products. So a good example is an IT services firm that delivers computers, routers, other equipment, servers, as part of a contract. And then the professional services portion of that contract is actually setting up that equipment, testing it, making sure that it replaces whatever was there before. So the SL system is one of the few that allows you to have both product and professional services in the same project, and also that could apply to commercial sides of a business too. So sometimes government contractors do both commercial and government contracting, and obviously those need to be segregated. But anyway, finally, every business needs to have excellent financial reporting tools, and so the Dynamics SLC system uses something called Management Reporter, and Management Reporter allows you to customize the way that financial statements look. You can put logos and images on the reports, page breaks and numbering based on your departments and divisions, predefined financial logic, which would be things like, would I like to summarize 10 accounts into a single line so that my consumers of the information think of it as a single item, but my accountants think of it as 10 separate categories. Also, if I've got divisions and departments and business lines and territories, etc., I can create something called a tree that is basically a hierarchical structure to the organization. And then I can print a financial statement for any branch on that tree and send that to the division manager who's responsible for that particular branch and all the branches below it. But I can determine how much each person should receive. And then finally, I can distribute these financial statements through an email rather than having to print them and then attach them to an email or print them and hand distribute them. And I can decide how much information to embed in the report. So it's very common for our customers to report that when they issue financial statements, the very next day they get a whole flurry of questions back. By embedding data in the financial report and emailing that data with the embedded data, then the consumer of that information can actually double-click on a line item and drill into more detail on that line item and answer their own questions. So basically, what you're allowing them to do is to look, excuse me, is to look at the general ledger posting information and answer the questions that they might have. So a good example, let's say rent looks higher than it should. If I double-click on the rent line, maybe I see the fact that we paid 2 invoices that month for rent, or maybe a deposit on a new office or something like that, and that caused the rent to be higher. And if we find that we double-click on rent and we see a travel expense, then we know there was actually a coding error, and we can report that. But the data is there to answer our questions, so it reduces the burden on the accounting division quite a bit. And again, that's not specifically related to DCAA compliance, but one of the final end products of any accounting solution is financial reporting at the corporate level, as well as financial reporting at the project level. So we're going to the next slide. Hang on. Oops. Sorry, I went 2 slides, backing up a bit. So what we've shown you is a solution that provides real-time, forward-looking project views, but is anchored to a compliant accounting backbone, accommodating all sorts of contract types. And it delivers information that both accountants and project managers need when they need it, and in a DCAA compliant model, so that when you're audited, when you have to produce information to support your government contracts, you can get it back out of the system. We have a slide. Just wanted to end the presentation with a slide with Kate and my contact information if anybody would like to follow up with us after the presentation. And we also wanted to point out that we do this presentation as a live event, a little bit more format to it, a little bit more content. Our next event is coming up on Tuesday, September 18th. It's in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and you can register for that by going to our website, ssiconsulting.com. We also have an event in Reston on October 30th. So we typically do one in Maryland and one in Virginia per quarter. So if you know anybody else who would like to attend one of these and you'd like to do it in person and you'd like us to buy you lunch, then we'd love to have anyone attend one of those. So what we're going to do now is to take everybody off mute and open the floor for questions. If you've got any background sound, if your dog's barking in the background, or if you're sharpening pencils and that sort of thing, if you could mute yourself while you have that noise, that would be helpful. But we'll take questions now and take everybody off mute. So anybody have any questions from the attendees?
I have one question.
Great.
My name's Mary Kilcar. I was wondering, when a subcontractor invoice is received through accounting, does it feed into Uninet so that the project manager can see that cost? Or does a project manager have to enter that separately?
Well, there's 2 ways you can do that, Mary, and the simple answer is yes. If you put the subcontractor invoice into SL, it can be fed over to Uninet. Another way to approach it is to have your subcontractors put their time and expenses into Uninet, so that way you have that data ready to bill without having to wait for the invoice, and then the data would go to SL for reconciliation. Bill, would you say that's pretty accurate? Lost Bill. Mary, did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. I currently have Uninet, and our current accounting system doesn't interact with sub-costs.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So project managers they're entering the costs directly into Uninet.
I see. Okay. So you can, yes. I'm sorry, what accounting system do you have right now?
We're just using QuickBooks.
Yeah. So if you put the invoice into SL, it can be fed into Uninet.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Unmuted.
Okay. Well, Bill, if you have anything else to say, I think I'm sure I've lost Bill.
You know, I think I was putting myself on mute to avoid the echo, but
there you are.
So we did have a question. Is the training online or in person for these systems? Okay, how is the Uninet training done?
Okay, so by far and large, our implementation is done via GoToMeeting. For our larger implementations, we will go on site. There's time and materials involved with that. But if you are doing Quick Start, if you qualify for Quick Start, then you come to our facility in Sterling for a day and a half of training. So that's in person.
And that's the same for the SL system. The training is done largely in person, although some can be done remotely and some can be done online. But most of the time, it's actually a collaborative process where the goal is for the users to be able to fully own the system and feel comfortable with it. Any other questions?
I see a question here, Bill. Do we do partnerships with CPA firms? And we do. Uninet does. We have a partner program, and if you'd like to email me separately, I'll put you in touch with the appropriate people.
And SSI Consulting has a similar program. So oftentimes, and as a matter of fact, referrals are probably one of the most common ways that we start working with new customers. So yeah, we'd love to help out anyone who has any questions for a customer. Okay.
Hi, this is Gary Fitch. I have a question.
Sure.
I believe I heard you say at the beginning of the slideshow that Microsoft purchased two different systems, SI and Great Plains. Am I correct there?
Yeah, that is correct. They actually purchased 4 systems, 2 from the U.S. They used to be known as Solomon and Great Plains, so now they call them Dynamics SL and Dynamics GP.
And what's the difference between the two?
They're both, well, they were the #1 and #2 accounting solutions in the U.S. Probably the biggest difference is that SL has a deep functionality for project-driven organizations, and GP is stronger for distribution and payroll, HR, and some other functionality, but not so much on the project.
Gotcha. Okay, and so what was demonstrated here is the SL today? The project version?
Yeah, what we've discussed today has been the SL project version.
Got it. Very good. Thank you. That's it for me.
Sounds like somebody might be in their car if you if you're on. You can mute. Okay. Other questions before we give you back a little bit of time in your day-to-day?
Bill, Mary has asked if we have a pricing schedule, so I would recommend she contact you directly. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, so pricing is a bit dependent on the number of users, but for both our products, number of users and the number of modules, maybe the actual problem set you're trying to solve. But we'd certainly be happy to give you some indications of pricing after a brief conversation. Okay, any other questions today? I was at a seminar this week that said that you should wait 9 seconds to allow people to ask questions. 3 seconds because people go, I wonder if anybody else is going to ask, and 3 more seconds for them to decide they're going to ask, and then 3 seconds for them to articulate the question. So I think that was about 9 seconds, but we'll see if there are any final questions. And if not, we appreciate everybody attending today. Thank you so much for your time. And again, Kate and I would be happy to answer any questions offline that you have. Thank you very much for attending our webinar.
Thank you both.